There's a lot of countries, outside countries. There's a lot of regional states as well that's exploiting those resources. And of course, our efforts is to ensure that we monitor, we hold people accountable, and we look at how these resources are being distributed and find mechanisms and ways that the people of the Congo can benefit from those resources. In our annual discussions, since your question is on China, is that we do have, we're coming up to another annual discussions with China to see where they can play a helpful role. In the past, they've done an engineering battalion in Sudan. They've done road construction to AID and U.S. projects. So looking and seeing where we can have areas of commonality and then areas where we do not, is how do we make sure that it's beneficial to the people in Africa.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, absolutely. My colleague from California, Ms. Bass.
Thank you very much. You know what, I look for, one of the things I wanted to say in terms of China's involvement, I really want to see more involvement from our companies. You know, and one of the areas that I'm really interested in is promoting our companies in the U.S. to get involved in infrastructure. China's famous for building roads in Africa, and it's a real mixed bag in terms of, what did you say?
Not so good roads.
Exactly, not so good roads. But, you know, we certainly know the quality of our companies. And so I would really like to work with you in the future in ways that we can establish partnerships to promote U.S. business involvement, because I'm distressed by the Chinese involvement as well, but I think one answer of it is to step up ours.
I think I would thank the Congresswoman and sort of pile on there. We've spoken just a couple of times, and I think originally with regard to oppressed minorities in Africa, and I look forward to working with the Congresswoman. It strikes me that the Chinese infrastructure created in Africa almost always heads from the natural resource to the ports. Go figure. But it is, at some level, a national security situation for our nation as it relates to rare earth minerals, et cetera. And again, there is a role for this country to play in perpetuating basic human dignities and freedoms and expectations. We could spend another entire hearing on alleged abuses by UN peacekeeping forces.
And we have. Say to my friend,
right. I mean, it's
a real problem.
Well, it's tragic, right? To paraphrase President Reagan, I'm from the UN and I'm here to help, and it gets worse. And so that doesn't mean we should throw up our hands and stop trying. But when we have people of your caliber with your experience, you know, again, within the appropriate role and purview of the U.S. federal government, we need to care about human beings across the world. And a prominent foreign leader said to me, look, if the Chinese will help us and there are strings attached, it's still help. Yeah. And if we withdraw and create a vacuum, somebody's going to fill it. But the challenge here is how we are good stewards, work within the appropriate realm of what's federally allowable in this country, and then don't subsidize bad outcomes. And that's what frustrates me. And I'm, in no way, shape, or form am I in an adversarial tone from you two fine people. It's that I want to hear, we have these hearings, we talk, it feels good, but what are the answers? And so I think Congresswoman Bass and I are on the same page there, but there are opportunities to be had. If a corporate entity wants to make money, that's fine, but if they help people while they're doing it, it's even better. And so how do we do that? How do we invest? How do we ensure that our investments aren't undergirding those who are our geopolitical rivals economically and potentially militarily? And how do we do so without victimizing people who have a 200-year history of being victimized by outsiders?
Before we go to our next panel, just very briefly, I would point out to my good friend, and on one trip to Kinshasa, I'll never forget, I had dinner with, so did Greg, with a member of parliament who also has a farm. And he said, I can grow anything. And I really loved his attitude, and he showed me his farm. He could grow anything. I can't get it to market. There's no roads. There's no bridges. And I say that, no, there are very few. And the Chinese have come in, and in a quid pro quo, in a fleecing of DR Congo, which they've done elsewhere in Africa, they have gotten minerals, wood, all kinds of commodities at unbelievably discounted prices for those roads and bridges. we have the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act that precludes, it holds to accountable those who engage in bribery and other corrupt practices. Chinese have no such law. So we know that corruption is a very serious issue here, and the Congolese are not getting anywhere near what they should be getting for what they give to China in exchange for those roads and bridges. So we need to do much more on trying to ensure that our, and I would say our friends and allies who are truly democracies with something like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act sell, but especially the United States. I do have one final question of many, but I'll just finish with this.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interrupt,
Sure.
I apologize, and thank you for yielding. What we can do is tell the world that the Chinese are exploiting people. And again, I don't have a problem with Chinese corporate entities. I don't have a problem with them building the roads, but they are, fleecing is a great word.
It is. And I'll say to my friend, we've had several hearings on that kind of corruption and that really exploitation of African resources on their way to Ghana. There's many, many countries. And unfortunately, it doesn't get covered by the press. We hold these hearings, we put in resolutions, we get bills passed, and it's not even on page 15. So that is very discouraging, but we got to do it anyway because we got to do